it rather well.
The most integrated and important project concerning urban renewal and housing has been generated by priests. It should have been generated by city planners and city architects. Are you taking the city's place?
I think one of the reasons initially was that that the churches were perhaps the one stable institution in the community, and when the city was looking for some kind of an institution to relate to, about the only thing left was the church, or the churches, I should say. A couple statistics that kind of heighten what John Smucker said was, in terms of the change of population, that in 1960, I think there were 13 Jewish temples and synagogues, and in 67, when I first came into the community, only one of them was left. And the other statistic was that we discovered when we got into this, that we were losing 1,000 units a year of housing in our community through fire and abandonment. So that the rapid changeover and the rapid deterioration, the city was, I think, pretty desperate to find some institution in the community that it could relate to and to try to get something done.
Something you call, I think, a tenant orientation course. What's that?
Well, the tenant orientation course, we found out that many of the buildings that you build in the so-called poverty areas, and I say so-called because many of the people are not that poverty-stricken, but because of discriminatory patterns of housing in New York and in other places, you find that especially amongst black and Puerto Ricans, they're all living together on all economic levels, from the lowest to the highest. So when you have a building of this sort, people begin to move in, you get the same mixture. Now, within that mixture, you're going to have some people who have used to living in rundown buildings, slum-type buildings that really didn't care as to how they treat the building. Their mode of living might have been on a much lackadaisical or lower level, if you want to call it that way. And we found that for some people, we have to run an orientation course. So you can't just say some people, you say everybody has to attend the orientation course. Basically, the orientation course is to, one, introduce them to the services that we will give them, such as management, security, maintenance. Two, we go about explaining to them about the building, about the operation of the building, the elevators, the compactor service, which is the garbage service. Then we go into the business of the individual apartment as to how they treat their apartments. Now, in some instances, we have to show people how to hang pictures on the wall because of the type of drywall construction that we do have. Other buildings, we have to show them where they can put up a curtain rod and how it should be put up. And we find that if this is done ahead of time, before they get into the building, and we make this mandatory that they have to attend, we find that we have less problems. And in terms of problems such as destruction to the property itself inside the apartment, we find that we have a very minimal amount of problems.
Yes.
You got your check, Mr. Martini?
Yes.
Come on in.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll ask her.
Thank you. Excuse me.
We've been living here approximately 7 months.
Where did you live before?
Lived a few blocks away, Washington Avenue.
It wasn't as nice as here, perhaps.
It wasn't as nice as it is here, right? As a matter of
It wasn't
fact,
as spacious as it is here.
Right. We had more space.
It's better here.
We have more space here than we had there. We have good heating system here, and plenty of hot water, and of course more room.
Is that
That's
too
the most
expensive?
important thing.
The main thing was that it's more room.
Yeah, right.
Closet space.
It's not too expensive, right? We pay a little more than what we paid before, but it's within our means of income.
Oh, yes.
And we seem to be managing.
We felt, I believe, that housing would be one key of getting a hold of the whole community. Perhaps we were naive at the beginning, but yet I believe because we had this total interest in the total community, that in the planning of the community, we not only tried to bring in a new housing, but we asked for new schools. There was a new police precinct built. There's a new hospital plan. There's all kinds of new facilities that we were always talking about. So whether we have achieved the goal, I think it's too early to say, because a community is a complex, dynamic, ongoing thing. And each of us, while we are in the community as leaders, need to see the picture of the whole, that we're moving along with a goal of trying to improve this community. And we're just hoping with the new housing that as people move in, as we have more to do in bringing them in and getting them services and building relationships, that we will be able to accomplish the goal. But I would like to say this, that one of the keys to the whole thing is building community or relationships. Housing is not, the physical thing of housing is not the primary thing at all if we can't build relationships between people in those houses or with the community.
I think you're right. You have to be naive or even utopian to achieve something in this society. But it takes money, too. Where do you find the money?
Well, eventually we had to turn to the Urban Development Corporation to really get this thing started, and through them to certain people who would produce the equity funding of the projects. But while they came 3 or 4 years after we had been working intensely on it, in fact, I think the architects had done practically all of their work, and it was ready to go. The city still wasn't ready to put the money down on the line, except in a very limited extent. At that time, the Urban Development Corporation came into the picture, and through them, we secured the funds that were needed to get the project going.
I think the important thing to remember about financing is that the community first had an idea. They had a concern, had an idea. They had a concern, and they got themselves together, and then they looked around for what laws, like the federal law of 238 law, and state and city, what kind of programs that they could utilize in order to accomplish their purpose. It wasn't the other way around, that first they looked for the money and then for a place to invest it. It was rather from the idea of the community first having a concern and wanting to know. And here comes the idea of a motivation. If a community cares enough and they want to really get something done, they'll find a way to do it.
Oh, you mean community-minded as far as the people are concerned?
Yes.
I think they are community-minded, but someone has to reach out from the community to have the people more or less become involved in the community. Unfortunately, this has not happened here yet. The mere fact that you build a place like this, or put up a development anyway for the purpose of erasing urban blight, it doesn't mean that it's going to change the community. In other words, what you've really done, if you've changed a rundown building or a site that's never anything has been occupied on, and you put something on it, that doesn't change the community. And if something isn't done to the community on the outside to protect that what you've already put up, then you find your community problems creep right into your existing buildings. So what has to happen here is the community per se has to more or less see that these buildings are protected so that they themselves can get more buildings, newer buildings in the community.
Some of the tenants here say that in order to become a community, they need more services. A swimming pool, a gymnasium, facilities for the kids. Do you think this will come soon?
I I don't know. You know, it's always a question of cost involved. A builder comes in, he puts up a building. Now, if he's going to put in a swimming pool and other services which are not related towards the building themselves, then he's going to have to relate this cost in the building, and the cost of rent, that is. Now, right now, you can't build a building in the city of New York for less than $100 a room. And this is just with normal services, no extras. So if you put on your extras, you're going to have to reflect this in the rent. And for the people that you want to serve, that you really want to serve, or really want to help in new housing, they can't afford to pay that kind of a rent. I would say at this point, this is where the city and other governmental agencies should come in and see that these services are put in, because the builder can't do it with the cost of construction as it is now.